Let me know if this sounds familiar. You're sitting down to study and you've got all the material you need to study in front of you. You've got some time blocked off. You're doing all of the things that research says you should do to learn more effectively. You're using retrieval practice. You're spacing your reviews. And maybe you've even started a learning journal of some sort where you're keeping track of everything. And as you work through that study session, you're feeling good about it. You feel okay. You feel you've learned the material, so you close the book. But then, a couple days later, something doesn't click. You run into a question that you were studying the material from. You were sure that you prepared for it, you're all ready, but it's just not quite there. Or at least it's not there in the way that you thought it was. Now, for most of us, when this happens, we'll blame the material that we were using to study, or we blame ourselves. Maybe we didn't study long enough, or maybe we're just not a natural fit for the topic. But here's what the research keeps showing over and over again. It's almost never the material that you're using, and it's almost never aptitude. It's actually the layer above studying that nobody teaches you. Now, in the next 15 minutes or so, I want to show you what that layer is, why it makes every other learning technique you know work better, and exactly how to build it into your sessions starting this week. And the payoff is that you'll be able to finish your study sessions knowing whether they actually worked. Not hoping that they worked, not guessing whether or not they worked, but actually knowing that you have studied the material and you've mastered it. As always here on Learning and Technology with Frank, we look at ways that we can use technology with intention to learn, to teach, and to be more productive. And if that's the type of conversation you want to be part of, then you can subscribe and you can like this video, subscribe to the channel, and there's also a free Skool community that's linked in the description. So we'd love to have you there in that community as well. Now, with all of these techniques that we're learning, we can also add tools. And one of the most effective tools is artificial intelligence when it's used correctly. And that brings us to the sponsor of today's video, Venice AI. Venice AI is an AI solution that I really like because it allows me to use many different AI models. I can go into Venice AI and I can choose from a whole number of text models. I can choose from many different image models. I can do text to video, image to video, video to video. I can even go in and change my privacy modes because Venice AI is a secure, uncensored, private AI solution. I have exposure to a lot of different models and I can use them as I need to use them. So for example, what I mean by that is if I have a project that I'm working on and I need to use a certain tool fairly extensively for a few hours, I can just go and get tokens for that tool, use it for that period of time, and then I can move on to another tool. Or if I'm not using a tool, I don't have to pay that monthly or yearly subscription fee. I just consume the AI services I need as I need them. I can also go in with Venice AI, and they now have agentic AI as well. So I can go in and I can work with agentic AI. I have an agentic chat. I can go in and research topics, write code, brainstorm ideas. There's all sorts of things that I can do with Venice AI. And again, the best part for me is that I can work with many different models. I can test many different models, and I don't have to commit to having a whole bunch of different subscriptions. And this allows me to have that private, secure, uncensored AI across multiple models. It's a really cool tool. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description so you can try it out yourself, see which models that you want to start playing around with, see how it works for you. Thank you so much, Venice AI, for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to metacognition. Now, a few months back, I was sitting in my office here. Peanut, my little gray cat, was supervising at the edge of the desk, as he will do. Blossom was running around causing some chaos. And I was looking at some feedback, some email from a student that was having some challenges, and they wanted my help. So what they did is they said to me that they were trying to study for a certification exam, and they'd done all sorts of work. They'd done active recall sessions. They logged it all down. They had spaced the reviews that they were working on the material with. They had fantastic notes, super well organized, great flashcards. They were doing all the things that were right in order to study. But then when they went to write the certification test, they failed. Now, the stakes weren't catastrophic because you can retake certification exams, but they were genuinely confused because everything that they'd read about how to learn had, to do all these things that they figured the learning would happen. Everything they said, the learning is going to happen. So I looked at the study notes and logs for a little while, and what I found, it wasn't that the techniques that they were using had failed. The techniques were fine. Their notes were great. What I found was that across all of the study sessions, they'd never once stopped in the middle of a session and asked themselves a question that sounds almost too simple to answer. The question is this: is this actually working? Not, am I doing it? They were doing it. By the book, they were following everything properly. The question is the thing that I'm producing providing understanding that I need? They didn't have a feedback loop, no self-check. They were on a kind of intelligence autopilot. They were following the right procedure, and the procedure was running independently of whether or not it was working. Now, that layer, the layer that watches the learning while the learning is happening, that has a name in the research literature. It goes back to John Flavel in the 1970s. It's called metacognition, where you're thinking about thinking. You're learning how to learn. And in the years since, the research on metacognition has gotten extraordinarily more detailed and has proven that the act of actually thinking about what you're learning is an important part of ensuring that you are learning. Now, when we use the term metacognition, it sounds really academic. It's a fairly large word. It might seem that it is complex, and maybe that's why it doesn't get taught. But what it actually is in practice is three simple habits. You run it before, during, and after a session, and they'll make your learning so much more effective. Before you study, you plan. You ask yourself, what do I already know about this topic? What am I trying to understand by the end of this session? And what's my strategy going to be today to learn the topic? Just 2 minutes. You can write it down in a journal if you like. This is great because you can just quickly take pen and paper, and it can help you. It forces you to have a plan. And when you skip this planning, you sit down, you open the book where you left off, you read for an hour, and at the end of the hour, you're still asking yourself, what was I trying to accomplish? You'd struggle to answer that. If you took the time to make a note of what you wanted to do, then by the time you finished, you'd be able to know whether or not you had done that. So the planning, that 2 minutes, it shifts you from reception to intention. And doing this, it goes back so that you have a clear understanding of what it is that you're trying to do in terms of your goals. You don't have vague goals, you have set goals, and you'll get better results. During the session, you're going to monitor things. So as you're progressing through the session, you're going to do a lot of monitoring, and a lot of people don't do this. What you'll do is every 10 or 15 minutes, you'll stop, you'll close the material, and you'll explain back to yourself what is it that you've just done, as if you'd never heard of it. If you're explaining it to somebody who'd never heard of it, you want to go through and be able to explain the material, because if you stumble here, then you know that you're not getting the material. Now, you probably have a bit of an echo happening here. If you watched the first video in this series, we were talking about active recall, and it took me a long time to figure this out myself. Monitoring, that metacognitive version, it's basically a second layer on top of it. What you're doing is you're testing to see whether you understand. You're asking, can I explain this, not just can I recite this? And that distinction, remembering versus understanding, that's what metacognition adds. Active recall is remembering, metacognition is understanding. So we work with retrieval practice and metacognition together. And then after the session, you'll do an evaluation. What you'll do is you'll say, what did I actually learn today? Where did I get stuck? What could I do differently next time? So really, it's just maybe 4 minutes to write everything down. So I know, 4 minutes of reflection, it doesn't sound like very much, but it really is. Over 20 sessions, that's 80 minutes of course correction. So you can see that the more sessions you do, just that little bit of time will help you set a very powerful learning trajectory. So the idea really is to frame, plan, monitor, and evaluate. The 3 habits before, during, and after. But there's also one move that I've started doing in the last couple of years that's changed the monitoring step in particular. And that's the using of AI. No, again, not to get answers, but to reveal what you actually understand. The mistake that most people make when they start using AI for learning is they use it as an answer machine. They'll ask it to explain a concept, they ask it to summarize a chapter, they'll ask it for a definition. And that's fine for the planning stage, but it's terrible for the monitoring stage. That's why I cover it in my book that I wrote, Learning with AI, which is really a way to use AI to study smarter and not have it do the work for you. Now, what happens is if AI just gives you an answer, then you'll read the answer, you'll feel like you understood it. You've done something called cognitive offload, where you think you have a layer of fluency, a fluency illusion really is what's happening, and you think that you know the material even though you haven't covered it. But here's what you should do instead. When you've finished a study block and you want to check whether you've actually understood it, you can turn the prompt around. Don't ask the AI to explain it. You ask the AI to probe you so that you have to explain it. The prompt I use, and I'll put a variation of this prompt in the description so you can copy it, goes something like, I just studied Hertzberg's two-factor theory. Quiz me on it. No definition questions, application questions. And if my answers show gaps or fuzzy reasoning, push back on them and don't be nice about it. Now, the last line matters. AI models default to agreeable. They want to make you happy. So if you say don't be nice about it, then they'll make sure that they'll give you proper challenges to the information that you're trying to retrieve from your memory. And it turns out that, and here's the surprise here, is that, or at least it surprised me, is that what happens is it really builds your understanding because you're having to explain it to AI as a mirror. It's really quite powerful. Now, a mirror doesn't tell you anything new. It reflects what you already know. And that's exactly what metacognition needs. It's a mirror that can ask you questions. I ran this myself the other week with a piece of research that I was reading on cognitive load theory, John Sweller's work, which I was sure that I understood. I asked the AI to push me on it. 4 questions in, it caught me confusing intrinsic cognitive load with extraneous load in a way that I wouldn't have caught on my own. So 20 seconds of discomfort and an hour of potential confusion saved. And that's the monitoring step on steroids. It's where AI earns its place in a learning workflow that actually respects how your brain works. What I've been describing to you from a research standpoint is what Flavel called metacognitive regulation, the active management of your own thinking. It pairs with 2 other things that you've probably heard about if you've been watching this series of video. One is what Robert Bjork calls desirable difficulties. The stumbles and hiccups you have when you're monitoring, those aren't failures. Those are the desirable difficulties that actually build durable learning. Smooth sessions feel good and they produce weak retention. Difficult sessions feel rough and they produce strong retention. So metacognition is how you notice which kind of session that you're in. The other is retrieval practice. The Roediger and Carpical line of research we spent some time on in the active recall video. Metacognition is what lets retrieval practice work. Without the metacognitive check, retrieval practice becomes rote recall. You're exercising a muscle without knowing whether the muscle is doing the right thing. So when you put them together, then you get something that I've come to think of as the core of good independent learning. Retrieval practice provides the mechanism, desirable difficulty provides the conditions, and metacognition provides the steering. Without the steering, you're just driving fast in the wrong direction. Now, let me zoom out for a second. Imagine if this were how you ran every serious learning session. Not just for exam prep, not just formal study, but for any reading that you do for work, new software that you're trying to learn, the paper that you're reviewing, the course that you're auditing. 2 minutes of planning beforehand, a monitoring check every 15 minutes during, and 4 minutes of evaluation after, and an AI setup to push back on you to make sure that your understanding is really there when you need it to be. What does 6 months of that look like? You stop finishing sessions wondering if they worked. You finish knowing whether they worked. You catch your own misunderstandings in the moment, not on an exam, not when it matters. You adapt your strategy in real time instead of grinding through the same approach for weeks, hoping that it'll click. And the part that I find quite moving when I think about it, your relationship with your own mind changes. learning stops feeling like something that happens to you, and it starts feeling like something that you're steering, that you're in control of. For faculty, this is how you model learning for your students. You're teaching them how to learn, not just what to learn. For graduate students, this is how you survive the back half of a program where nobody is assigning your readings anymore. You're on your own. For anyone teaching adults, this is a skill you're probably already trying to transfer, whether you have a word for it or not. Metacognition is the skill that makes every other learning technique actually work. It's not a claim I'd make casually, but I'll make it here because the research supports it and because I've watched it play out in my own classrooms and in my own learning. If you've made it this far, thank you. Not a lot of people are going to be able to make it through 15 minutes of a discussion of metacognition and what it means to learn. So it really does say something about your dedication to learning and your interest in education. I really appreciate it. Now, when it comes to this, if you are interested in learning and making sure your learning is authentic, I did write this book on learning with AI, incorporating AI to get authentic, lasting learning. And in this book, I cover different techniques, research-backed techniques, where we can use AI to help us with those techniques. I put all my prompts in here that I'm using. I have a whole methodology in here that will help you become a more effective learner. So if you are interested in the book, it is available on Amazon and it's available as a Kindle version as well. So check it out if that's something you're interested in. Now, when it comes to this series of videos, we have the videos on active recall and spaced repetition, this one here on metacognition. There are a number of other techniques in the book, but the next video in the series, we're going to look at wrapping everything all together using AI as the tool that helps us, and I hope that you can join me for that one as well. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to the members of the channel as well. I really appreciate those of you that are supporting the channel. It really helps me out, and it gets my cats all sorts of treats. So Peanut and Blossom say thank you as well. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next video.